My name is Alice, and I run the French NGO Square. Many researchers underline that media literacy assessment is an overwhelming challenge. Firstly, because it's not clear what should be assessed. Media literacy has been called a constellation of competencies due to its diverse definitions, uses, and purposes. There is no agreed upon standard approach to the measurement of these competencies. Half of the 130 media literacy researchers who were brought together for a study agreed with the statement that media literacy outcomes are not explicitly defined, so it's not clear what should be assessed. As a result, research on the direct assessment of media and information literacy skills is scarce. There are other very operational issues when you are an NGO who wants to have its media literacy program's impact assessed. You will have to explain to participants that they have to complete quite intrusive and school-like 30 minutes questionnaire and that they will have to do so twice. Could you please, could we see the next, yes, please, thank you. This can be a barrier when you are running a program that relies on the voluntary participation of youth, especially if they are not comfortable with schoolwork. And you will also have to dedicate about 10% of your budget to it. But I'm convinced that we have to take up the challenge to ensure the usefulness of our actions when the need is so great to equip everyone to resist disinformation and various propaganda. Now I'll tell you about what we do in the French context. Next, please. Square implements training to foster the ability to detect and resist disinformation and hate speech. The aim is to prevent adherence to conspiracy theories that jeopardize social cohesion. To achieve this, we've designed educational workshops to inform young people about how they might be misinformed, with the support of Google.org. This curriculum is very much inspired by inoculation research. Bess Goldberg, head of research at Jigsaw, will tell you more about that later today. In a word, the aim is to showcase the manipulation techniques commonly used in misinformation in order to increase people's ability to discern trustworthy from untrustworthy content. We also address how social media work, cognitive biases, especially the tribal bias and the confirmation bias, and the scope of free speech. A 2-hour workshop is dedicated to debunking conspiracy content, and the participants are finally assisted to create their own journalistic content. You see here the pictures of 4 participants of the last week's session in Clichy-sous-Bois. Let me tell you more about them. And please switch to the next slide. Thank you. The audience is recruited through local NGOs in deprived areas, such as Clichy-sous-Bois, where the poverty rate reaches 42%. It is where the 2005 violent riots started after the deaths of 2 youths electrocuted while hiding from police. And the 20 days of rioting that followed led the government to declare the first state of emergency for more than 20 years. So there, a women's soccer club engages unemployed youth who voluntarily enroll in the program. And when the training starts, the youth are invited to complete a baseline survey that includes socioeconomic and educational data, in addition to data linked to the training, including measures of propensity to conspiracy. So the first major benefit of evaluation is to verify the targeting. The baseline results confirmed here the following assumptions. Our youth are poorly educated and mostly of immigrant origins. They face socioeconomic difficulties, and they perceive ethno-racial discriminations. It fosters feelings of injustice, resignation, and low self-esteem. And all these problems render them particularly vulnerable to disinformation, conspiracy theories, and divisive narratives. More than 2/3 of our audience do not believe that the Charlie Hebdo attack that happened in Paris in 2015 was planned by terrorists. In view of this, here are the expected and measured outcomes of our training. You see here an overview of all the measured outcomes. We measure skills, knowledge, behaviors, beliefs, and perceptions. All of them are measured before and after the training session. We use measures from existing scales, here with a blue background, and original measures specifically created for the purpose of this evaluation. Please, let's focus on 4 particularly interesting scales which allow us to measure abilities related to disinformation receptivity. The first one is the measure of their capacity. Next, please. Thank you. Of their capacity to evaluate the reliability of information by detecting fake news. One common approach to measure belief in fake news is to focus on truth discernment. Discernment is calculated as belief in true news minus belief in false news, and it captures the overall accuracy of one's beliefs, and thus gives insight into failures to distinguish between true and false content. In practice, this test consists in presenting true information and fake news to the participants in a typical social media format. Participants evaluate the truthfulness of each information on a 4-point Likert scale, going from not true at all to totally true. And we then get a media truth discernment score reflecting the capacity of the participants to identify both true and fake news. The test we are using in this evaluation is a set of 24 news, so 12 true news and 12 fake news. It was created and used by the research laboratory LabCide in Paris. We also evaluate the belief in conspiracy theories. A significant barrier to studying conspiracy beliefs in young people is that most of the existing scales ask about events that are likely to be unfamiliar to young people. And others measure belief in complex, abstract notions of conspiracy, which are also likely to be challenging for younger people to understand. Considering this, we use the Adolescent Conspiracy Belief Scale, ACBQ, because the final items measure general conspiracy theorizing as opposed to representing current events. The ACBQ is not context dependent. Participants respond to 9 items on a 7-point scale, with anchors 1, strongly disagree, and 7, strongly agree. And for example, we have the government deliberately hides important information from the public, or the government often knows about terrorist attacks and lets them happen, or again, governments have deliberately spread diseases in certain group of people. This test was developed recently by Daniel Jolley. The third scale, we also test the reasoning of the participants using the cognitive reflection test. Performance on tasks such as the cognitive reflection test are associated with a wide range of beliefs and behaviors, including actual social media behaviors and bullshit receptivity. People who are more reflective are less likely to believe false news, regardless of whether the news is consistent or inconsistent with their partisanship. We use some items of the cognitive reflection test to test how the participants are resistant to cognitive biases and what are their propensity to engage in deliberative process rather than intuitive processes. For example, a batter and a ball cost $1.10 in total. The bat cost $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? The intuitive answer to this question is 10 cents, while the correct answer is 5. We also measure the open-mindedness of the participants. AOT scales, the next one. So active open-mindedness thinking scale has been found to correlate with a variety of different measures of conspiracy belief. To measure AOT, we used the 13-item scale developed by Stanovic and Toplak, which was published in 2023. It includes, for example, people should always take into consideration evidence that goes against their opinions, or changing your mind is a sign of weakness, and many others. So now, please let's come back to the big picture. Thank you. It's worth saying that we have a mix of self-report measures and performance-based measures with green background. Performance-based measures precisely capture dimensions of media literacy competencies, while the self-report measures provide insight on the mindset of the participants. Both are needed to evaluate the impact of the training. I would now like to address the issue of the evaluation design. We have chosen a pre-post test study to measure the impact of our current project. At the end of the 4-day training, the youth are again invited to complete a questionnaire. And as the training only lasts 4 days, it's well admitted that the differences between the pre-test and the post-test answers are only due to the training. So no control group is needed here. Next, please. But in a similar previous project, also funded by google.org, we had chosen a randomized control trial to establish impact. We partnered with JPAL, a network of researchers founded by the Nobel Prize Esther Duflo, hosted at the MIT. And the randomized control trial consists in assigning applicants into a treatment or a control group before the beginning of the intervention. The control group includes those who will not participate to the training. And in order to create 2 groups that are exactly comparable on average before the program begins, these 2 groups are created randomly. Thus, at the end of the program, a comparison of the dimensions measured in the 2 groups makes it possible to determine the impact of the program. If we compare the participants' answers to their own answers given 4 months earlier, we would measure the effect of the program as well as the effect of various things that happened at the same time. So the impact would not be exclusively attributable to the program. There, the researchers concluded that the treatment group demonstrated an increased ability to detect fake news and an increased use of fact-checking tools. This was some very encouraging early success. In our current project, the training is offline and we have strengthened the intervention. So we hope we'll get even better results and cover more outcomes. From there, we would be able to advocate with the government to integrate the outputs in the school curriculum, especially in disadvantaged areas. The murder of a French teacher targeted on Facebook as having insulted Islam led to a great awareness in France. It was the result of a mix of fake news and hate speech. In response, the government asked for reports on how media literacy was taught at school and asked the experts to provide recommendations on what should be done. Tons of educational resources exist, but there is a huge lack of appropriation, combined with a lack in the curriculum. You have to know that in France, less than 40% of teachers report teaching media literacy, and most of them report that they have not been trained to do that. So we want to contribute to making available effective, turnkey resources to anyone who wants to teach young people how to resist hate speech and disinformation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Alice Bougnères. Wonderful to have you with us. One question before we let you go. We have many organizations working with media literacy attending this event. How could they implement this measuring system?
I'm sorry, I didn't get you. Could you repeat, please?
Yeah. How could they implement this measuring system?
You have to work with independent evaluators, researchers, and you have to dedicate about 10% of your budget. And from there, you have to be ready to lose participants because it's very, very difficult. It's very hardly accepted by local NGOs and participants to be evaluated with such intrusive questions about their background and about their mindset. So it's quite difficult. But once you have a team of researchers used to evaluate this kind of programs, and you want to evaluate it, you can get many benefits from this impact evaluation.
How did you personally cope with these kind of problems?
Regarding the budget, we had made this choice, this decision to dedicate a big part of it to a randomized control trial, because it's so important in a field where there is so much to learn about what's effective. We found that research issues should be one outcomes of our project. So once this financial decision had been taken, we get in touch with JPAL, which is very specialized in evaluating the impact of social programs struggling against poverty in general. And we've worked like 6 months on the outcomes with the review of literature, and from there we got lucky to get a very adequate impact evaluation design, which allowed us to reveal the positive impact of our program.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Alice Bougnères. Wonderful to have you with us, and thank you for sharing your valuable experiences. Thank you, and have a nice day.
Thank you. Have a nice day.